I want to talk a little bit about a major point you brought up, which is irregularity of rhetorical and expressive manner. Can you talk about the sources behind that? So, what sources talk about that, and is how prevalent is that thinking? Is it a major theme of the Renaissance and the Baroque?
It's more than major. Is über major if we combine German and English? Über major. Yeah. So
And is that
the,
something the lutenists actually themselves write in that sort of thing in performance? Wow.
yes. So yeah, so there's a lot there. There's the source material, there's the description. So I'd say it comes down to what I said and what you said previously. It comes down to language. As soon as the people writing about music mention the connection between music and language, then unevenness is a major part of that.
Mm.
Because if we in the European languages in particular, let's say Italian or German, if we want to speak expressively, and of course English, if we want to
Mm.
speak expressively, we speak unevenly. If you want to sound like a robot, what do? I will talk to you like this, Nick, and we will have a lovely conversation. Okay, so that's
Very
evenness.
good. You equalized everything.
I tried. It's hard. But like if I look out the window and say, it is a beautiful day, I want to go swimming, it's not very convincing.
No.
If I say, it's a beautiful day, I want to go swimming, then what have I done? I've lengthened certain syllables, like it's a beautiful day. If I say it's a beautiful day, I'm not expressing the word. It's a beautiful day. That's a 3-syllable word, and I've lengthened the first syllable, and I've also put a bit of weight on it, extra weight on it. And we could, there's millions
Okay,
of
wait. Now, hold on a second. But then again, instrumental music has no words. So, so then you have to know: do certain notes have more rhetorical weight than other notes? And does that mean, oh no, I have to learn a bit of music theory here? And what does
okay.
that mean?
I'm not going to answer that question immediately. I'm going to get to it though.
Okay.
Okay, so it starts out with music being language, so vocal music. And if you're going to sing in an expressive manner, then you need to lengthen certain syllables and you need to put certain weight on certain syllables. You need to put weight on certain words. So, in other words, if a word is more important, like I want to go swimming today, then I make swimming a little bit longer and a little bit more emphasized. And this is now we're getting into the one aspect of rhetorical speech, which is to lengthen syllables and words that are more important and give them a little more emphasis. And now, to answer your question, or to start answering your question, the first source that I know that connects music, vocal music and instrumental music, is Silvestro Ganassi, who published his first book in 1535. And he connects very, very directly the art of singing to the art of speaking, and then the art of instrumental playing to those two. And he I don't have quotations right in front of me now. I could grab something, but he speaks about the instrumental players. The instrumental players must imitate the oratorical art of the orators, of the oratorical speakers and the singers, because this is the true art of making music. So right there in 1535, we're seeing that instrumentalists were trying to imitate this rhetorical way that people were speaking or singing. And very specific to that, when he writes about playing a wind instrument, and this is really the beginning of the source material, he talks about always working with a 2-note group. And this 2-note group is going to become extremely important in Baroque music, which is then the polar opposite of even notes. I'm going to again, of even notes.
Yes.
um, so he
Wow.
gives us for wind players, he gives us three possible ways of, in effect, speaking into the instrument when you play it. For example, a recorder. Um, he speaks of a soft articulation, lere, 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 a middle articulation, tere, 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 and a hard articulation, teke, teke, teke. So there's three different ways of doing it, but all of them have a more emphasized syllable and a less emphasized. So if you do tere, 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 it's not tere, tere, it's tere, 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 tere. So imagining syllables and actually speaking them into the wind instrument is the first way of coming to terms with a vocal way of playing an instrument. And now let's jump 300 years or just go through the next 300 years in 5 seconds. So starting with Rossi and going through multiple sources, the most important thing is that we're being told that the instrumentalists should, when they play, should imitate the way the orators speak or the singers sing. And very connected with that is this irregularity that we're talking about in note length and in note weight. And so
Brilliant.
if this was
Wow.
a major thing, that's why I said it's uber major. It's sort of, if we're talking about theater, about doing Hamlet and expressing yourself, um, and somebody comes in and says, "To be or not to be, that is the question." First thing you would say
Yeah, that
is,
would.
"Hey,
Mm.
to be
This
or
guy
not,
can act. This guy cannot act.
that that is the question." So the way you express that is exactly what we need to do as instrumentalists. And there's, yeah, hundreds
Wait,
of
that's like the most devastating point that should reverberate around all musicians, especially okay, is that only for the Renaissance? Does that extend into the Baroque? Because I'm going to ask the obvious question. Then, when we play Bach, his well-tempered clavier, and everyone is just so it's just. Do we have that sort of irregular manner and sort of does the rhetoric also apply in the Baroque as well?
oh, absolutely. It's
Oh,
stronger. It's stronger in the Baroque.
oh wow!
It started in the Renaissance, and that's also, you know what? Do you know what Renaissance actually means?
Tell
I'm
me.
asking your listeners. It's French, renaissance. Re means again, naissance means birth. So rebirth, renaissance, rebirth. What are they rebirthing? They're rebirthing the rhetorical and the cultural concepts that come from ancient Greece and Rome. People like Plato or Cicero, for whom rhetoric was the driving force. Um, and this became very important in the 16th century, and people were attempting to integrate it more into the music. It became more important when there was a change in musical style in the, let's say, 1580s, 1590s, that which we call Baroque music. The reason why music changed, the reason why Josquin de Prez sounds different from Gesualdo or Monteverdi or Caccini, is that music changed. People were basically in Italy, particularly in Florence, were saying, we want to do the music, we want to perform the music more rhetorically, but we can't do that with the standard polyphony of the time. Let's change the music. So they developed a new style of music that allowed them to sing in a rhetorical manner, which, I've only mentioned the irregularity, but there are different elements there. So they actually changed the music. And then the whole Baroque period is affected by this, including Johann Sebastian Bach. And if you
Mm.
hear a harpsichord being played sort of like a sewing machine, where everything is the same, then there's no historical evidence for that. So
Wow! Oh,
irregularity
oh.
goes through Bach. The rhythmic
Mm.
irregularity, the irregularity of weight, and it's an extraordinarily expressive style. That was, if we ask ourselves, what was it that inspired the development and growth of what we call Baroque music? They called
Mm-hmm.
new music. The simple answer is they wanted to write music that could be performed more expressive in a rhetorical fashion. And that goes all the way through Bach, through Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, definitely, he was younger than Johann Sebastian. And then things start changing sort of in the late 18th century and the 19th century, where instrumental music became a bit decoupled from the art of singing. So as long as vocal music, singing is the driving force, and that goes from 1500 to maybe 1780, but with over.
I remember there's a quote by Chopin is telling his students to go and listen to bel canto opera singers to learn ornamentation and everything. So
And
you're
then,
absolutely right.
but then we have the 19th century, and the 19th century, as you just said, was highly influenced by opera. So we have, for example, by Mauro Giuliani, we have pieces, based on Rossini operas, and Sohr was writing operas. So it's the style of playing seems to have become somewhat decoupled from from vocal style, but they still were extremely influenced by vocal music. It's just that the idea of expression within the phrase changed. I mean, there are very many similar tools, expressive tools that are similar to. I lost myself in the sentence. Similar to the 19th and the 18th century and the 17th century have many similar expressive tools, but
Okay.
they're used differently. So
Okay.
there's no evidence that Bach would have been played ta 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 ta. But many people, particularly in the late 20th century, had this idea because they were trying to avoid romanticism, and I think this is one of the things that put early music in a little bit of a wrong direction in the late 20th century, was the desire to remove romanticisms from the performance. So
Okay.
a lot of
Okay.
Baroque performance in the second half of the 20th century is fairly devoid of expression because the people didn't want to play romantically, which I support fully, but they didn't recognize yet that one could play very expressively, but in a rhetorical manner as opposed to a romantic manner.